You are 14 years old. Early morning. You wake up on a straw mattress and realize it has started. 5 days of field work, prayer, and cooking ahead. Just a rag, a rough cloth belt, and a quiet hope that no one will notice. This was the life of millions of women for 1,000 years. Every month. From a peasant in an English village to a queen in a French castle. Today, we'll look at exactly how they managed, what they used, how they washed or didn't, what the Church, Islam, and Judaism had to say about it, and why the answer will be nothing like what you'd expect. Let's start with the most important question. What did they use instead of pads? Rags, pieces of fabric folded into several layers, linen, wool, sometimes just scraps of old clothing. They were secured to the body with a belt, a strip of cloth around the waist, a piece of fabric front and back, roughly like a diaper. After use, the rag was washed and put back into service. Back then, disposable items simply didn't exist. The quality of the material depended on wealth. A peasant worked with rough linen. A noble lady used thin, finely woven cloth, and a maidservant handled the washing and changing. But here's something interesting. Historians who study women's health in the Middle Ages have reached a surprising conclusion. The problem may not have been as pressing as it seems to us today. A medieval woman experienced far fewer cycles in her lifetime than a modern one, an average of 5 to 7 pregnancies, long periods of breastfeeding, 1.5 years to 2 years per child, plus chronic malnutrition in lean years. All of this interrupted the cycle for months and years at a time. Some women encountered it so rarely that menstruation simply didn't occupy the place in their lives that we tend to imagine. We need to pause here and break one persistent myth. Medieval people were not dirty by conviction and didn't avoid water on principle. Public baths existed and were popular across medieval Europe. In major cities, London, Paris, Cologne, they operated regularly. People washed, socialized, sometimes ate. Much like Japanese onsens or Turkish hammams, yet for some reason, medieval Europe tends to get a different reputation. Things began to change in the 14th to 15th centuries when the plague arrived. Doctors decided that pores opened by hot water made the body vulnerable to infection. Public baths began to close, also because they had become associated with prostitution. The daily routine looked different. Washing the face, wiping the body with a damp cloth, changing undergarments. A clean shirt against the skin was considered more important than bathing the whole body. During her cycle, smell was added to all of this, especially with rough fabric and limited access to water. This is where herbs came in. Lavender, rosemary, wormwood, mint. Monastic texts describe herbal compresses and rinses for freshening, a medieval deodorant in effect. The difference between a peasant and a noblewoman was enormous here. One had a maidservant, a supply of clean linen and warm water. The other, at best, a stream 1/2 kilometer from the village. On top of the physical discomfort, the church added a psychological one. At the root was the book of Leviticus. A woman was considered unclean for 7 days during her cycle, and everything she touched became unclean too. An important distinction. This was ritual impurity, not moral, but in popular understanding, that difference disappeared quickly. In practice, this produced a long list of restrictions. No receiving communion, no touching sacred objects, and in some traditions, no entering a church at all. In some places, it was believed that a woman in this state could ruin a batch of sauerkraut or bread dough. simply by being nearby. But in the 8th century, Pope Gregory I received a question from Bishop Augustine of Canterbury. Could a woman enter church during her cycle? Gregory's answer was surprisingly gentle. Yes, she could. Menstruation is nature, not sin, and barring a woman from church is unjust. The letter survived, and theologians cited it. But at the level of the village parish, little changed. The official position was one thing. What the local priest actually said was another. Nuns are a separate story. The monastery gave women something that was almost nowhere to be found outside: knowledge. Monastic medicine in the Middle Ages was far ahead of folk medicine. Nuns kept records, studied herbs, copied ancient medical texts. Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century nun, wrote treatises that described women's health and pain relief in detail. Specific herbs, angelica, yarrow, wormwood. What modern pharmacology has since confirmed as genuinely effective antispasmodics. Within the monastery walls, women helped one another and shared this knowledge. There is a paradox here that few people notice. In Judaism, there is the concept of niddah, ritual impurity during the cycle. The rules are strict. 7 clean days after it ends. Complete physical separation from the husband. Even passing an object from hand to hand is forbidden. After those 7 days, the mikveh, a ritual bath in a specially designated pool with strict requirements for the water. Full immersion. Only after this is the woman considered clean. In Islam, the logic is similar. The concept of haid. During the cycle, prayers are canceled. The Ramadan fast is not observed. This is not a punishment, but a relief. Upon its conclusion, ghusl is required, a full ritual washing of the body. All 3 religions restricted women during this period, but in Judaism and Islam specifically, the restriction was built into a structure of obligatory purification. No one planned this as a hygienic measure, but that is exactly how it functioned. Medieval doctors relied on Galen, a Greek physician of the 2nd century whose texts were considered truth for 1,000 years. According to Galen, menstruation was excess blood that the female body could not burn on its own. A man burns off the surplus through physical labor and the natural warmth of his body. A woman is colder and weaker, so the excess exits once a month. It sounds absurd, but within this system the logic was airtight. From this same logic grew popular fears. If the body is getting rid of this blood, it must be dangerous. Menstrual blood spoils wine, sours milk, kills crops, clouds mirrors. This wasn't written in fairy tales. It appeared in medical treatises and encyclopedias. And at the same time, the very same blood was used as medicine for gout, skin inflammation, and headaches. If it's that powerful, it must be curative when properly applied. But the strangest twist was amenorrhea, the absence of a cycle. For a medieval doctor, this was a serious illness. Retained blood that doesn't exit poisons the body from within, hence melancholy, madness, physical ailments. Treatment involved bloodletting, herbal decoctions, physical exercise, and, literally, marriage. It was believed that a normal woman's life restored the body's rhythm. A cycle meant impurity. No cycle meant illness. Either way, the female body required correction. Now, we know a little more about that 14-year-old girl from the Middle Ages. Her religion determined whether she could enter a temple during those days. Her wealth determined how clean and comfortable those days would be. Her era determined what she thought about her own body, and why. The first disposable pad won't appear until 1888. Until then, 1,000 years of rags, belts, and silence. Everything that seems ordinary to us was once completely different. If you want to know how, subscribe to the channel